Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Ms.
On the online Rivertown net that this is a time to celebrate the birthday of Warren Knowles. And I learned there, or was reminded there, that Warren Knowles grew up in River Falls through high school, went away, left our state for college, came back to our state for law school, settled in New Richmond, and started as it was to me. He got his start in politics with the St. Croix County Board. Went on from the St. Croix County Board to the state legislature, then served in the most illustrious branch of the armed services, the Navy, during World War II. Here, here. Here. Aye, anchors weigh. A return to our state, was lieutenant governor more than once, then was governor for several terms, and to this day, you know, one of the stewardship funds is named after Governor Knowles. The principal street in New Richmond is named after Governor Knowles. He was responsible for the recognition of the value of creating the Minnesota-Wisconsin Boundary Area Commission, which was started under his administration to help the two states get along over their shared border. So it's appropriate that this county board recognize and remember Governor Knowles, an illustrious son of St. Croix County. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for that report, Buck.
Rabel. Present. Alfred Trank. Here. Julie Spear. Here. Joe Hurchin. Here. Bill Peavy. Here. Gerald Peterson. Here. Charlie Grant. Here. Greg Telejohn. Here. Roger Larson. Here. Richard King. Here. Frederick Horn. Here. John Mortensen. Here. Esther Wentz. Here. Gene Ritz. Here. David Peterson. Here. David Osnes. Here. Lauren Sather. Here. Richard Marzoff. Here. Sharon Norton Bauman. Here. Peter Post. Roger Rebholz. Here. Bill Cranmer. Here. Daryl Standifer. Here. John Borup. Here. Clarence Malick. Here. Steve Hermson. Here. Kenneth Colby. Here. Cindy Leonard. Here. Linda Lucky. Here. Shane Demuling. Here. And Laura Tommerdahl.
Your name has changed since the last meeting. Congratulations to you. The next thing on the agenda then would be the administrative coordinator's report.
Well, good morning. With Buck's comments, it's occurred to me that perhaps I'm looking at a future governor right now in the amongst you. We could all wager on who that might be later, I suppose. Couple things to report on. On September 3rd, 4th, and 5th, the Finance Committee will be going over the department budgets. Just about all the department budgets have been received and approved by their parent committee. I know there's at least one left. On Friday, when I meet with the department heads, we'll go over their schedule. I think I've copied the schedule to you. Sometimes the committee chairs attend those meetings before the Finance Committee. Unlike the past few years, excuse me, at the next county board meeting in September, we'll spend more time going over department budgets with the county board and work out an arrangement with the department heads so that their information can be condensed into a little bit more manageable format for the county board. But I would ask you to expect that the meeting next month may be a little bit longer than normal. There are several budgets, 25 of them, I believe, 26 of them. And I'll be talking to the department heads about all being ready to respond to questions, if not articulate the issues that have developed for their prospective budgets for '09. Now, this past week, the state's information from Department of Revenue comes out on the county's equalized value. And I've written the number up on the board. It's $8.7 billion. That sounds like a lot, but we have been experiencing a slowing in our growth rate in terms of equalized value. We are up 1.56%. That is 66th in the state out of 72 counties. Not too long ago, we were always in the top 5, if not the top growing county in the state. So we are experiencing the ebbs and flows of the housing market. Residential properties are actually down 2% from last year. And since 80% of almost 80% of our valuation is residential, that's something to keep in mind as we go through the next couple of months worth of budget work. Now, later on the agenda, there'll be a resolution for you that had been in your packet. Chairman Sandifer will address the particulars of it. Finance Committee has been reviewing building issues that are making their appearance as borrowing items in this resolution. In all likelihood, there'll be an amendment to the resolution, as I explained in my memo. One of you asked for what the likely interest rate is for borrowing. It's just about 3.5%, and it's actually, I think, in the information that's been handed out. We'll have Joe Murray from Springstead go through that in a little while and answer your questions on that. This has been a bit complicated. The board has been aware that we've been in need of repairing the HVAC system for this building. That was discussed in the budget last year for 2008. It was viewed as a borrowing item. What has not been talked about during budget discussions anyway is the roof of this building. It is a leaky roof, and it needs replacing, and Finance has reviewed several options, and that is included in the borrowing resolution, which is not the actual borrowing resolution. That will be a resolution that sets the limit that the county would be looking at borrowing. We'll go over that more in detail later. Final couple things. We have opened negotiations with the law group. They'll be meeting later today, actually, our second meeting. And finally, I just wanted to thank Mike Erickson, the city administrator from Hugo, Minnesota, who came over last week and met with the LEPC committee and did an extensive review of how the city of Hugo responded to the tornado of last May. And that has piqued some interest in the municipalities in the county and the county itself, and being able to respond to something is a good resource. And I thought it was an excellent presentation. The group seemed to appreciate it, and I've even had a request for some more information and contact with him. So that's my report.
Are there any questions of the administrative coordinator? Buck?
Could I ask a follow-up regarding the decline in residential assessed value? If I understood you correctly, you said that while our total valuation increased only 1.56, the residential part of that actually was negative?
Actually negative, and that's the second year in a row.
And that results then from the values of homes actually being reassessed downwards?
Correct. Now, why would we have an increase is probably where you're going.
No, I assume that's commercial and industrial.
Right, yeah. Right. And there is some new construction, although it's not a lot. The new construction number will be the one that relates most closely to what our levy limit will actually be, and we should know that, I think by the end of the month. I'm not sure when.
I suppose the foreclosures enter into this picture?
I suspect they do in terms of just revaluing properties. Imagine they go down.
Isn't there any warranty on those shingles or the work they've done on this building? It's not that old.
I'd probably ask Art Tobin to explain the particulars on that. I know we've looked at that, and there was some issues with that. I can't stand up here before you and articulate them all, but we did review that. Anybody else? Okay.
Thank you, Chuck. You've had a chance to review the agenda. I don't know if anyone has any additions or corrections to the agenda. You also have the consent agenda in front of you. Is there, there's a motion made by Gene Ritz and seconded by John Borup to accept the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Okay. Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We went right past the review of the agenda, and I just have a question regarding the purpose of having committee and department reports at the end of the agenda. Is there a reason for that, or is there a reason why we couldn't have department heads and reports at the beginning? We've got paid staff sitting here sometimes for long hours before they can present their report, and I'm just wondering if this couldn't be bumped up to the top, and if there's a reason why it couldn't be, in case the departments that are given the reports have other things to do after their report is given, that they could leave and continue to do their job.
Dan, it's a good comment, and you'll notice that today, the very first thing on the agenda before we get to resolutions is the county surveyor. I don't have it written in there, but he will put on his presentation prior to any resolutions.
But I'm talking about for long term. I mean, it's month after month, we always have it done at the end. I'm just wondering if there's a reason why it can't be right at the beginning.
Well, I think what we try to do is we try to fit them in between. And so it's, sometimes we just don't know until the last minute when that's going to be. Buck?
This was extensively discussed last term, Dan, and we've gone round and round on it. If you will notice under the old and new business category, every one of those items, all 6 of them, also have staff here to explain to us if we want explanation what they're about. So most of the things on our agenda involve paid staff who could be doing something else if they weren't sitting here, but they're here at our pleasure, which just behooves us to move as quickly as we can. So there's no easy answer to that. Somebody's waiting for somebody else. Sometimes you have members of the public, and I think Chairman Rebholz and I both try to defer to large members of the public, feeling that they probably value their time also. And after all, they're the ones that both we and the staff are here to serve. So there aren't any easy answers like taking the reports and moving them to the front just automatically, in my opinion. There you have it, for whatever it's worth.
Thank you, Mr. Malik. We will work towards doing that wherever we can, though, Dan. That's a good point. But sometimes it just doesn't work, so.
Did I make a bad point, Mr. Chairman?
Did you make one?
Yeah. Is that what you intended?
What is that? I get.
You gave me credit for a good point that you didn't give.
I'm sorry about that. I was thinking ahead of myself. That's fine. The next thing on the agenda, I want to make sure we announce the appointments that I and the vice chair discussed. For the ad hoc energy committee, I've asked Daryl Standifer and Fred Horn to serve as our county representatives, County Board representatives. And our citizen members, I have Jerry Van Sumeren from St. Croix Electric. I asked Mark Pendergast if he would do that, but Mark is a pretty busy man, and he deferred to Jerry Van Sumeren. And Jerry has a lot of experience in the area of energy. Dr. Brian Huffman is a PhD professor at the University of Wisconsin River Falls. At one time worked with Excel Energy, I think it was Northern States in those days, and his job was in the area of alternate energy and also General Electric Energy. And Dennis Horner is the City of New Richmond Public Utility Manager, lots of good experience. He works very closely with their public energy provider for the City of New Richmond. So those appointments have been made, and that's the committee that's the members that will serve on that committee. Mr. Peterson.
Being that this is such an important issue today, do you have a sunset date on that so we can actually get the studying done and get closure and get something changed? Or is it just going to, so often we just drift off into the sunset?
Well, I don't know, but I'd hope to live another 30 years, and you can sunset it after I'm gone. I think this is something that's going to be ongoing. We didn't set it up as a standing committee at this time. Someday maybe that'll have to come. But at this point, I think the committee is needed in the county. Now, as an example, this morning I happened to pick up on the internet a story out of the Madison papers that We Energy is building a windmill farm over in north central Wisconsin. They've already purchased the land. They're putting a huge complex in over there. It's being planned right now. When they do it, I don't know. And I think those are the things that this group will be involved in. Not necessarily us putting the money in it, but if it's something we should do, let's take a look at doing it. It could be solar. If wind fits, we can do wind. There's a lot of different things we can do. So.
10 minutes,
I'm sorry, that was, We Energy is Wisconsin. The next order of business, I ask our surveyor, Brian, to give us his presentation then this morning.
All right, thank you, Roger. There we go. I'll find where I can stand here. Anyway, it's nice to see you guys again. Most of you familiar faces, well, I shouldn't say most of you because there's many new faces here, but I look forward to meeting everyone. Again, my name is Brian Halling. I'm the county surveyor. And this morning I'd just like to share some information with you guys on what we've been up to, a little bit what we've been up to, and basically stress the importance of one of the main functions of the office, and that is the public land survey system. And I'll give a little history of it, and then go through at the end a little demo as far as what we're working at as far as modernizing and making the public land survey system information available to the public. So anyway, here we go. There we go. All right, I'll just run through basically some of our duties here. Some of the items, PLSS maintenance, that's basically maintaining the section corners. And like I said, I'll get into the PLSS a little more here in a few minutes. Maintaining the corners that are in, any road construction, we take care prior to the road construction, make sure all the section corners are addressed so we aren't losing any of these corners. So we maintain, along with the highway department and communication there, that we get out there prior to any projects and take care of the corners. Also our GPS project, which is the PLSS densification project, obtaining high quality coordinates on all of our section corners in the county. And the GPS network maintenance, I'll show you a picture of one of our GPS monuments later, so you guys have maybe seen them around, so you'll be able to know what that is. Of course, public assistance, manning phone calls pretty much daily, just questions from the public, and then any urgent issues that come up. And then we assist others with the subdivision reviews, our GIS databases, and records modernization, which I will get into with a short demo later. We assist the real property lister, county treasurer's office with GPS networks, record keeping, and then in right-of-way, both right-of-way issues coming from the public or surveyors and internal right-of-way issues at the highway department, purchase of right-of-way and whatnot. So what is the PLSS? And it stands for Public Land Survey System. And I will start by giving you a little history on that. And I would just like you to listen to this. All conveyances of land in Wisconsin are based in some part on the original United States Public Land Survey System and its physical location on the surface of the earth, which is our monuments. The monuments of this original survey constitute the basic legal reference datum in relation to which all real property in the state is located. Basically saying everyone's property is in some way goes back to the Public Land Survey System. Any acquisitions, transactions that take place with real property goes back and starts from the PLSS. And I just wanted to put this photo up here, a little history. I don't know how many of you knew that 3 of these fellows had a surveying background. And one, Thomas Jefferson, is actually the author of the PLSS. And back in, he chaired a committee that enacted to law the PLSS. And it actually said that in 1785, they said all lands west of the 13 original colonies on the East Coast, all the colored lands were to be surveyed using the PLSS, the Public Land Survey System. And in doing so, they needed something to start from. So what they did was they ran, in our situation here, they ran this 4th principal meridian, should have had that other pointer, that runs through Wisconsin. Well, I'll show you. You see it runs up through Wisconsin, north and south, the line that runs through not the center of the state, but close to the center of the state. And then there's also a latitudinal line that runs through. Actually, the south line of the state is a baseline in which they started to do our survey from. Now, we'll get this. Okay, so here is that 4th principal meridian. Let's see if we can get her now. There we go. Running through the state, and here is the baseline, the south line of the state, right there. And basically, all the survey, the U.S. PLSS, started off of reference to that 4th principal meridian and the baseline. And then what they did is ran latitudinal lines. You see these correction lines every 10 townships. First correction, second correction, and third correction, and so on. And we are lucky enough to have a correction line run through our county, and I'll show you later. You can see the reasoning we have those correction lines, or what it does to the townships involved. And so, to move on here, I just picked Emerald. Well, it was somewhat random. I picked it because, for one, the north line is on that correction line, and secondly, I'll show you how they actually pursued the PLSS. Backing up a little bit, the PLSS is based on 6-mile square townships and further subdivided into 36 sections, which are a square mile. And then each section was monumented. The corners were monumented, and the quarter corners, every half mile, were monumented in the original government survey. And in our area in St. Croix County, the original government survey took place in the later 1840s through the 1850s. And so what they did was, first they surveyed the township boundaries, okay? And then they came through and they had further subdivided those townships into the sections as we know them today. And what they did, you know what? I have another one of them. Thank you. Thanks, Buzz. So what they did here was they had the town boundary already surveyed, and every half mile they set their original monuments, which were, at the time, they liked to use large stones and posts, or they would actually put a wooden post in, and then they would put rocks around them and build like a mound of rocks to preserve them with whatever they could find that they thought would last the longest. So what they did was they came back, the surveyors, the crews were typically 6 people, and I believe the whole crew, they earned something like, well, I shouldn't say this now, but $2 a week, I believe, out on the crew. Or maybe $2 per mile for 6 people, you know, and this was back before they had any roads, or basically any roads or anything, fighting the mosquitoes without the off, and the Indians and whatnot, so it was an interesting job. But anyway, they came back, they had the boundary was already in, then they came back and they'd start right here, and they'd go north with their compass and chain through the hills and valleys and whatever was there. They'd go north and they'd set this quarter corner. Then they'd go north another 40 chains and set that corner. Then they'd head east and they'd put a temporary stake at the north quarter corner of 36. And then they'd go and they'd cross, because this corner was already set because they had already done the boundary of the township. They'd check their line to this one, and then they'd come back and use a correction. They'd figure out whatever they were off here and use a correction at the quarter corner, and they'd set that corner. So they continued on up with the same method up to here, but then all of their air was placed up in the last 40 of the section, okay? Because remember, this line was in, and this line was even in prior to the rest of the town lines, because this, in this particular case, this is the correction line, okay? And that's the purpose of this correction line, is every 10 townships you corrected and started over going from there north, okay? Otherwise, when you get up to who knows where, you know, the air would just accumulate. So anyway, they continued on up through, and the same thing in this case, when they checked over on this boundary, all of the air or excess was left in the last quarter mile. So you can see in this situation along 63 here, it's obvious that we're actually a 40 short. So it all was in that last, all the air was in there, and then you can see up here, it says a typical section is 640 acres, and here you can see in the half section it should be 320. We've got 391 acres, so this guy got a little bit lucky when he purchased the original government patent. So I think I'll move on here. And this is just a copy of the original plat from the town of Emerald, the same township, and you can see that in the original survey, things haven't changed. You can see that here there was actually a full 40 up in that north line of section 1. And then some. There's still an extra 54 acres and 61 acres in that half. And you can see over here, there's even less. There should be 80 acres over here, and there's less than 40. So like I say, all the air went into the. That's why you see some of these irregular acreages in some of the parcels. You can't say the back 40 isn't always the back 40. And then also here you can see what happens with that correction line. You can see these are the townships to the north, or the sections to the north township, I should say. And you can see how when they came up here, they put a distance up there, how far they came out from this corner that was previously set, the senior corner, which always prevail. And they marked that, and then they took off with this one on the new corners and headed north. Now getting back to today, this is our survey crew. I've got Fran Blaskotchik and Chris Kolbeth, and there's one of our survey rigs. And as you can see, we have it rigged up for our GPS receiver in the front. If we're going short distances, we just put it in the front. That way we don't have to tear it down every time we're going between corners. And like I say, one of our main duties is to maintain this public land survey system and to remonument any corners that we don't have record of, that have been lost over the years, the last 150, 160 years. And this is just an example of what we do run into, or what we do find, how we document the corners as we visit them out. And I don't know, maybe some of you remember this. I just put it in from last year. It's kind of a unique situation, but we do run into it quite often. We came upon this corner that actually had 3 positions. So obviously that's going to cause trouble when somebody if your property is supposed to start at this corner or be referenced to that corner, and you've got 3 different positions as much as 25 feet away, you're going to have some issues there. So of course the county surveyor is called in and tries to decide, no matter what, the rule is that corner is as best as we can depict where the original corner was in the 1850s, or when it was originally set in the original survey. No matter what, any fence lines, anything that's been set since then, our job is to go back and perpetuate that position of the original survey, the original government survey. So we go through with a bunch of different techniques, any evidence that we can find. We obviously use land use, fence lines and whatnot in trying to compute the position, or the best fit, what we think is the best position for the original position. But so in this case, you can see we came back and we agreed there was something here. We agreed with it, and we set an aluminum cap. But we didn't destroy what was there previously. We just showed it on the sheet to document it, and then it goes through a little bit of the history and our reasonings also. And later I'll show you how we're incorporating these tie sheets and making them available through the internet for the public. And this is just a photo I took of that same tie sheet. It's the picture where we've got a 2-inch pipe here. We've got the aluminum cap that we accepted and set, which is a foot away. And then there was a nail here, and then that other one was over where the cone is there. So hopefully from now on we've documented everything, and this should be the corner. And this is just a picture of the cap that we set, the monument that we set. St. Croix County Surveyor, penalty for disturbing marker. And basically in roadways, that could be buried down a foot or so if it's a gravel road. We try to keep it down so the graders won't disturb it. And then this is a sign that we put up by any accessories that we set, which I'll go back and show you. Right here you can see we set these pipe in case something happens to the monument. You can go back and reposition the monument, and here you see sign, and maybe some of you have seen these signs around. You'll know what they're for. You'll see them in the ditches or whatnot where we have survey marks, and basically just a caution sign, hopefully telling utility companies or whoever that there is a monument in the area and to contact us. And this is just another picture that you can see that correction line. These are the corners that we actually have GPS'd here, and you can see how there's twice as many on that line. And then now you know the reasoning for this jog here, the jogs. And if you look, you know, if you're driving up the correction line, you'll see, because typically roads were built on section lines. And center lines were built on section lines, and you'll see a lot of these roads don't line up along the section line, and this is the reason for this. And here's just a picture of those GPS control monuments. I don't know if you guys have seen these orange posts around they're typically in road right of way along the roadways. And just so you guys know the importance of these, if this became disturbed, to reposition that and reset that monument would cost about $10,000. So that's obviously, we want to protect these as much as possible. So it's more than just what you see on the surface here. And believe me, a dozer can take those out, even though they're 12-inch diameter concrete, 6 feet in the ground. But heavy equipment can take them out, so they're very important. Okay, now what I'd like to do quickly is, hopefully I can get out of there. And now let me go like this. There we go. Okay, this is what we've been working on in conjunction with the state cartographer's office. In basically, you can see our county is one of the counties that's highlighted, and which means that we actually we're not up and running yet, but I'm working on actually a development site here. So we're still doing some testing on it, but I just wanted to kind of show you, give you guys a preview of what's happening and what we're offering in the near future to people that can go on the website and get any survey information without having to come to the courthouse or having to actually contact us. So what I will do here is just zoom in. You can zoom into county. If you have a particular section, you can zoom into it. Okay, so there's St. Croix County. It shows kind of that map that I showed you before. You can see the dots of the corners that we've GPSed. And then you can zoom in. Let's say I want to go back to, let's say I want to go back and get that corner down in Katy. Okay, so I'll put in 28. And now, one thing I failed to explain to you guys is west. Okay, like when you see like town and range, like on the top of the plat book or whatever, you see T30N. that means that 30 is it's 30 townships north of that baseline, which is the south line of the state, okay? That's what that 30N is. And you can see them up here, 30N, you can see they increase going north. And then the R is for range, and that's range 15 west, which means it's 15 townships west of the meridian that ran through north and south through the state. So that's what, you know, there is some intelligence to those numbers. All right, so I'm just going to put in town 28, range 15 west, and up there pops Katy. Now that corner that we were looking at was the southwest of 29. So I'm just going to identify, and I'm going to click on that box. Okay, and then it's to view the full record. Okay, here it just gives a little bit of information on the corner. It's our corner number. It's in St. Croix County. Section corner, it's aluminum cap, which we saw. Here are our GPS coordinates on it, which gives the datum and everything obtained by GPS, the coordinate method. There's some contacts here. And then if you click this, it actually links to our database here in Hudson. And there's our tie sheet. So the public can go right and find this, you know, right online. So be a real handy tool. Like I say, we're still in the testing stages, making sure sometimes when there's duplicate tie sheets, there's some problems. So we're going through and trying to get that up and running for everybody. So basically, that's my presentation for this morning. So if any of you have any questions, or if any of you want copies of any of this material, I'd be happy to send it to you. Questions?
Yes. Last week when we had the LEPC meeting, Mr. Erickson here from Hugo, and he had just mentioned that not too long before the tornado took place, they had completed their GIS work, and it was very helpful for when the tornado took place.
Right. Now, because of our GIS and our land information, we have all our parcel mapping and whatnot. We have our aerial photography, which we can overlay our parcel mapping on, and the GIS is used by the emergency government along with their GPS or whatnot to locate things. Charlie? The oldest marker we found, we have found some stones, and lucky enough, Ceylon was remonumented, resurveyed back in the around 1920. So there were a lot of metal, like plowshares, that were reset at original evidence. So back in the 1920s, but up in Glenwood, we actually found some bearing trees, because when they set those original corners, they would actually tie it to anything, any kind of a geographic mark. If there was any trees around, they would actually say there's a 8-inch bur oak southeast, so many links away. And over in Glenwood, we actually did find what we believe to be those original bearing trees from the 1850s. So it was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I had a chance to listen to your report about 5 years ago, and you mentioned that there was a lot of markers that you haven't located yet.
Right.
What percentage of markers have not been located yet?
As far as we haven't relocated, there's approximately 4 to 5% that we haven't. We still have to remonument, And we have some type of GPS coordinates on approximately 90% of our corners.
I was wondering the same thing, but I was also wondering, do you expect to have within the next year or two all those remonumenting efforts finished?
Well, it somewhat is driven by development and the need. To go out, there's a reason why the corners that are not in now aren't in. And it's not always just because they haven't been needed or development, but it's because nobody wants to set them. Because it may take you surveying out several miles in order to come back in and actually compute a coordinate value or a position for that. So it's hard to give a time when will be completed. And that, along with a lot of the efforts, go to the maintenance, maintaining what we have in right now. So I would not say in a year or two, but hopefully our efforts are towards trying to remonument what is not in. But as far as a time frame, I would hope, within 5 years, but I guess it's not a concrete answer. Oh, yeah. There are a lot of USGS benchmarks out there from the 1920s when they did that survey through. And we're also in charge of maintaining them. So, yep, there's a lot of them there. Buzz?
How precise is the GPS?
The GPS? It's sub-centimeters, so we're talking, quarter-inch stuff. It's only as precise as your network that you're starting from, which is a lot of some of it's 1 in a million down to 1 in 500,000, the precision of it. So, yeah, it's good stuff. You're splitting hairs.
Brian, you used a phrase early in your presentation in terms of the coordinates, and you said you're seeking to develop high-quality coordinates. That sounds like good enough. Why didn't you say accurate coordinates? Just define what you meant by high quality.
Accurate. Accurate coordinates, yeah. High quality, meaning we're not going out there with a handheld GPS and shooting these, one of your GPSs that you buy at Kmart. It all is sub-centimeter accuracy. So that's what I meant by high quality. The precision's there, so.
Back in the mid-'70s, I was a federal government surveyor and actually did some surveying over here in St. Croix County. So I'm kind of hoping that now that you're coming back in with the GPS, because back in those days we were still using the chains and theodolites, and we were just using some of the EDMs at that time.
Right.
And I hope that the stuff that I set back in the early 70s is still out there and was good.
Right, and a lot of people get confused because they think, well, that GPS is going to change things for me now. Or you're going to go out with the GPS and move that corner because it's more accurate. Well, no, we're not Well, there are measurers and there are surveyors. And our job as a surveyor is to reproduce that position of the original government survey, no matter where it is or no matter what the measurements, because obviously they weren't measuring 2640 on a half a mile. A lot of them are amazingly close, but nobody's perfect. So now we don't go out there and say, hey, there's 2640, there's the corner. No, we definitely go through the chain of history, and hopefully, there are cases when we can prove that prior surveyor that set that monument did not use the proper methods of setting it, and then something happens where there's a dispute and we don't agree with them for the better of the public, So that does scare a lot of people about when you say GPS, they're like, oh, you're going to move my corner. No, we're not going to move your corner unless it was not set correctly not by measurement standards, but if it was set with the correct intent, it doesn't matter what the measurements were.
I'm curious, this program that you're putting this into and inputting this, is this something that's provided by, who's hosting this for you, and is that
The
this
state
software that you're using?
The state cartographer's office, actually, and I'm working with the state cartographer, one of their aides, their techs there, that basically developed this, and so it's free for us to use, and they implement. We give them our data, and they basically maintain the whole system.
Does this tie in with the planning and zoning department and how they, with the plats that we've got here? Or
Our land records site is totally separate. Nope, this is just it's another tool for the public and the surveyors to use. But as far as our parcel mapping, the only way it ties in is because our parcel database layer was built using our section corners, but at that time we had a fraction of what we have now located. Okay, so they had to use other methods when they built our parcel layer, and so it's not survey quality accuracy, the parcel layer. I don't know if that answers your question.
It helps. You had mentioned that you provide for aerial mapping as well?
Right.
Is that different than what the county pays for?
No. The county...
Same stuff?
No, we provide the same stuff, the aerial flight that we did in 2004, and that is all the same stuff that the county has on their website.
Oh, so the county pays for that?
The county paid for the flight, yeah, land records, yep, in 2004. Mm-hmm. There is talk of a statewide flight that we will not have to contribute any funding to. I was just at a county surveyors meeting, and that's in the near future, in the works anyways. So we may have some newer stuff. It's not to the quality ours was. Ours was 6-inch pixel, which you can zoom right in on. Theirs was like 2 meters stuff. But it'll be free, but it'll be newer and not as good a resolution.
Thank you, Brian. I think this has been very good, but I think we need to move on. So we appreciate very much your report. Tim, would you catch the light switch back there for us? Okay, the next thing on the agenda, we'll begin with the first thing on the for the new business, and that's the resolution approving the amendment to the Town of Hudson zoning ordinance, Planned Unit Development District. Now, you originally got just the resolution. Now, you also today should have an explanation sheet, another sheet that goes with it on your desk, so that you, who's handling the report on this? Okay. Pardon me? Yeah. First of all, let's move this to the floor if we could.
Turn on your mic, please, Gene.
Hudson has their own, Town of Hudson has their own zoning ordinances, and they can pass their ordinances, but they have to have the county board's approval. So therefore, that's what these are being brought forward for.
You're moving on to a second to that.
I'll second it.
Okay, now we'll move it to discussion.
Yep.
Ellen, if you would take care of that. Yes, he did.
I'll just briefly recap what these are. I'll start with the first one on the agenda, the Planned Unit Development District, and basically what it is, the Town of Hudson is enacting a new district to their zoning ordinance that would allow planned unit developments that would include uses for the basic previous zoning district, any uses that were in the previous zoning district, and also special exception or conditional use type uses that are specifically for multi-unit independent senior living facilities, and you see the list there, and any related amenities, and then also limited care facilities, assisted living facilities, skilled nursing facilities. So it's basically to target those types of facilities. The ordinance has a specific location in the township. I understand from talking with the town members or town plan commission chair that there are about 4 locations in the town that this specifically applies to at this time. It may change in the future. And then basically they try to have some specific standards and regulations applying to those uses and some process that they've developed for how those uses would be developed and approved. So that's a specific district added to their zoning ordinance. The other proposed amendment is a specific use added to their zoning ordinance, and I believe it is the I don't think I ever really knew for sure if it's under their commercial district or their industrial district. I think it's their industrial district. And it would be for a distribution center for central storage and warehousing of goods and materials, and also for the maintenance related to that, and then allowing for developers agreements with that specific use. And the Town of Hudson zoning ordinance, when it comes to specific uses in commercial and industrial districts, they are always very narrowly defined. If that's understandable, that they're very narrowly described, and they do not allow for variation, like related uses, and so that's why every time they have a new use, they end up making a zoning ordinance amendment. Any questions?
Gene, did you intend to put both of those resolutions on the floor at that time with your motion? Yes. Okay. So what you've in effect done is number 1 and 2, both of those resolutions are what she discussed. And they're both on the floor, and they're seconded by Sharon Bauman. At this time, unless there's any other questions, we'll call for a vote. Those in favor say aye. We'll vote on both of them. They were both discussed. We'll vote on them both. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Okay, both of those zoning ordinances will take effect. Will be the third one, the resolution creating a substance abuse committee. As you'll remember, we brought this to the floor the last month, and thank you, Linda, for assisting our group on this. And we now have made the changes that are necessary, and I think I'll have Esther Wentz explain what they finally did with that with the resolution.
According to our bylaws, we cannot have a standing committee and have employed personnel from the county on that committee as voting members. They can be ex officio members. So in redoing the resolution, we stated that the chair and vice chair would nominate appoint the 3 supervisors on the committee, and that all the other members, and we listed the different departments that they would be coming from, as well as volunteers from the community who would serve on the committee. We also put out that there would be per diems for the supervisors, and that there would also be in the bylaws, it would be stated in the bylaws, the purpose and the reason for the committee being there.
And that's all explained in the yes bill.
Point of order, do we need to have a new motion with this reworded resolution?
Yeah, we need to bring it to the floor.
Okay, I move to put it on the floor for purposes of discussion.
And I'll second it.
Cranmer Wentz, first and second. Okay, is there any other discussion on that resolution? Mr. Osnes?
Esther, is there going to be somebody from drug court that's gonna be a representative? Is that gonna come out of the DA's office? Or is that gonna be somebody extra? I don't see it.
We have the drug court
I got it,
coordinator
my fault.
as a member.
Any other questions? If not, all those in favor of this resolution, say so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, it carries. Then at this time, I think I'll have Tim Ramberg give us his presentation on highway information, and then right after that, we'll take a break.
I'll try to be short or brief. My wife told me I was short 2 years ago in church. I didn't know that. But, yeah, that's a true story. Jody says she kicked her shoe off, and I said, "What's wrong, honey? You got a bad foot?" She says, "No, you're just short." So she was self-conscious. But I'll try to be brief and zip through this and start from here, and then just to share with you quickly, here's our coaches, or the Transportation Committee. And the introduction here, a while back, we had a neighbor at Hammond take a picture of the tornado that went through Hammond, and they caught our building right there with the tornado over it. So I thought it was quite fitting that we are weathering the storm. And this is one of the years that all of us departments are looking towards the upcoming budget and the issues that we have. So we're one of those weathering the storm with the rest of us. So on an introduction, this is a little bit different than what we handed out earlier that you got in the mail. I have hopefully a few ooh-ah moments in here, and the rest that I know you can read when you get home or read it at your leisure, and I'll just try to stick to some other issues that we wanted to share as well. The Highway Department overview. In 1968, we had 109 employees. 101 of those were union and eight were non-union. Now we have 82 with a 67 and 15 mix. And those are, there was no layoffs per se. It's through attrition, through the retirement process, and analyzing things as they change. And of course, using new technology and those types of things, we've streamlined things over the years. Our responsibility, we have the county highway system, the state highway system, the various townships. And now we changed our scenario of when we plow about 2,400 miles or 2,400 lane miles or 1,200 center line miles, which is the same as going to El Paso, Texas, not Wisconsin, El Paso, Texas, and back. And so we thought that was an interesting tidbit to share. We also have 66 county bridges that we inspect. We inspect 180 total, but 66 of those are on county highways. And those are the federal required biannual inspections. I think it's every even numbered year, and every odd number year we inspect the road itself. But the even number year we inspect the bridges, and those are 20 feet or larger. This is, you have also, this is our where have we been, where are we, and where are we going synopsis for road maintenance, construction, and bridge construction. In 2007, we paved 11.2 miles, and our goal is 16. And we did hit that in 2004 on our 6-year average. So now our 6-year average is 10.38, where before it was 10.42 and 14.64. The point I want to bring up here is that the trend is going the opposite way that we want it to. We're going away from 16 miles, and we've taken some initiatives that we shared last year that we're trying to move in that direction and change the trend from backwards to forwards. And then the chip seal, we chip sealed 42, and our goal is 54 for a total of 70 miles. 70 miles, a total sealing of the roads. And then ditto with the 6-year average. Road construction, we look for 7. We did 6.91, so we are right at our goal basically on road construction, and that includes widening too. So that helps add the numbers up a little quicker when we widen rather than do total reconstruction. Spot improvements are difficult to put miles on, intersection and those types of improvements. Bridge construction, we're at 1. We don't do it every year. We try to package them up into packages for efficiencies there with some towns as well. This is an interesting slide that I'd like to spend a little bit of time on. This is our winter maintenance. In an attempt to keep the budgeting of our winter maintenance stable like we do the rest of our budgeting while managing the actual fluctuations, it was so interesting that the 10-year trend from 98 to 2007, the difference between what we budgeted and the actual winter maintenance was only 0.32%. Here is our budget, and here is our actual. So we like to say we'll manage the ups and downs, and we try to keep to the county board a constant or more predictable or more consistent budget for you. And this holds out. Our trends have been holding out. Our 10-year trend, we're pretty proud of that one. I probably won't be able to say that every year. Sometimes we'll be over $100,000, or some years we'll be under $50,000, and that plays out right there. But for the average, for the trends, we're hopeful that our salt bids just came in, folks, and it was $41 a ton this year. We propose 3,500 ton, about $88 a ton. That's a $160,000 increase in just our salt usage if we don't change anything. I don't know what, and I know everybody else is feeling the pain in all these other areas too, but our scare last year down the other side of the Wisconsin, one of the reasons I found out Monday was that they're replenishing all their depletions as well, is bidding for, it's getting it up here. It's the quantities that are the issue, and as well as getting ready for next year. And then it's interesting too, a lot of people think that most of our time is spent on winter maintenance, and over the years we've tracked how much of our time is spent on winter maintenance, and it's this is the bottom number. The bottom line is regular time spent, and the top line is with overtime. So you can see the snow doesn't always follow when we're working, but also when you stack them and you see the total, it's only 8.46% of our total hours. That's putting up snow fence, mixing salt sand, getting ready, and winding down. Everything is 8.46%. I think some people think it's more than that, but as far as our time and our hours spent, those are the hours that are actual winter maintenance. But that's what we're looked at towards mostly. This was an interesting one. Back in '96, I was on the CHEMS board, County Highway Expenditure Microcomputer, mouthful. Anyway, we did a presentation on what the system, it's a free computer system that the state developed for us, and we were helpful in developing it as well and putting our 2 cents worth in. But what we were always trying to say, and the data showed, was that our experience is very, very makes a big deal with the highways in regard to where to put the salt, where the shaded areas are, where it drifts, where you have congestion issues, and where you have the black ice, all those types of things. So what this does is it shows us that those beats, this is beats 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These are the state beats. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And this is the number of pounds of salt per lane mile used during this storm. And it was a storm in '96 from the start to the clear wheel tracks. And those beats that had 2 years or less experience use a considerably amount more salt than those that had 5 years or more. That's the key issue that we showed at the time. And at the time, we wanted to show the value of experience expressed in salt usage. Then what we found since then, we've done a lot of different things. In the union contracts, we gave folks a bump or more dollars to stay on I-94 or to stay on their beat for 10 years or more because it's valuable. One year we had to hire somebody off the street for I-94. It's like throwing them to the wolves. And so that was one thing we did. Another, we used some new technology with the spreaders, and we used some calcium chloride. And then, of course, training and whatnot. So with that, now this year we took a peek and look at the consistency that we have on those same beats. If you go back one, here's the consistency that we have in those. And we do have some new multi-lane areas as well. But that is a combination of all those things that we did that we had the ooh-ah moment back in '96, and this is the result of it. We thought we'd share that with you as well. And with the salt prices we have now, I think we're going in the right direction on this. My brother was out in April to Auburn, Washington for business, and he took these pictures, and I couldn't believe it. So I'm not going to complain about 14 inches of snow anymore. This is 14 feet. This is 14 feet, and that's a driveway, and it's a heated driveway. So that just does melt. It's a heated driveways out there. I couldn't believe it. And then this is 10 feet of snow on top of the roofs out there in the Cascades. And so when we put our roof on, or the things that we do, I'm sure they beef it up a little bit more as well. Here's when we were in Wisconsin Dells. Thanks, Shane and Wendy for these pictures. Wendy went afterwards when we were at our conference and took pictures of these. I know you saw this on the news, but we went right down in there, and this was the destruction at Wisconsin Dells at our conference. And right here is County Road A, as in Apple, and you can see the power line is still hanging there. There, you see it there. This was all woods right here. And the flood made a new path to the river. So this is a new river to the river. So anyway, this was Tommy Bartlett's show and all that, those things up there. These are the stumps and whatnot that remain there, and that just shows the damage that water does. You know, it starts out with a little bit of water over the road, but be careful where you go. If you can't see it, don't go there. Then again, we shared this last year, shared again, we updated these numbers. We have 80% increase in hot mix and a 93% increase in chip seal since that 2004 number. And now it went from 70 to 80%. Now it's 80 to 90% of our costs of these types of projects are in just material costs. And then here again, this is another graph from last year, but this is the increase in hot mix just from the previous years. It's, you know, it was back in 2004 when we were able to manage these things, and then we had all these surprises come at us. So we are looking at alternative ways to accomplish our work through the WCHA, Wisconsin County Highway Association, and the federal highways as well. And this is the dollar amount, the base year of 2004, and the price that we took on the proposals. This is the tons per mile and oil per mile, and then the price this year that we got. So with our 16 miles and our 54 miles, this is the increase in dollars in just those two types of operations. And we are going to be looking at readjusting, or how are we doing with the with our goals. We do have those jurisdictional transfer issues. Maybe we can change the size of the box, or maybe we can look at some concrete type chip seals that's millable, but it has to be millable. The school's still out on some of those, so maybe there's a longer life issues with these new technologies that are out there that we're forced. It's kind of like a zit. It's going to pop pretty soon, so we're working on when it does. What alternatives do we have? Sorry, my farmer is talking. The alternatives that we're looking at, it could create other issues as we move forward, but we want to make sure that they're tested enough and we have the dollars. It's kind of like we have 600 lane miles of state roads, and if those were homes and we had 15-year shingles, we'd have to shingle 40 a year. And we need to have the dollars to shingle 40, let alone have the dollars to invest in to use new technology to get to 20. So that's in a nutshell kind of what we're looking at there, and we are looking at alternatives as we move forward on that. And it is a hair-raising experience, but we do have. Here's a pie chart of our revenues and then our expenses, and I can't remember if this is the one we handed out to you guys, but this is our gross revenues and our gross expenses. This is the $23 million we talk about. That's quote budget, but our levy is less than $4 million. And so here's our expenses, and our levy, our appropriation is 18% in 2007. I think it's 17% now, but this is all the areas that we operate in. We have a fringe benefit cost pool. We have all these cost pools around that we operate with. And then our expenses as well. And then this was the issues that we want to just add to this. These are our surrounding states. Sorry. These are our surrounding states, and the alternatives that they have that they can get dollars into their transportation fund, and Wisconsin only has these three. And also on top of that, there is no fuel tax on ethanol alternative fuels that we know of. And now with decreasing miles driven, to add to the problem, we have less revenues as well. Oh, by the way, call your insurance company and maybe you can get a decrease in your insurance costs if you're driving less. Because I heard that they're making a lot of money right now. But that's just an idea, a thought. Anyway, this is one of the cartoons I pulled out of one of the papers that with the bridge issues going on in Minnesota, with some of the ideas that were brought up. And here we have the highway improvement trends, and the county appropriations or levy is the line on the bottom for highways, and the top red line is the total for the county. And here we just wanted to show that we have been working on staying with that gradual, predictable increase and steady base that we want to use for highways. And here is the same comparison with the highway levy versus the total levy. And then here's the percentage. It went from 29% back in 91 to 15.72% of the county levy is to the highway department and the surveyor department. That's all one. And then just to conclude, our long-range planning and long-range strategies that remain key. I know we speak to that all the time, and the county board has as well. Maintain our resources to perform these core services. Emphasize material availability. That's new this year. Some counties are not able to get salt. I've heard 2 counties they did not receive any proposals. Alternative products. Maintain options for the changing environments. Options, not choices. If we make a choice today, it's not going to work tomorrow after the winter, because that's when we have to reevaluate and look at all the options that remain and make choices at that time. Maintain flexibility to be able to respond to emergencies and continue to position the department to be able to work with other units as well. We do have several projects in the works, but it depends on if the other entity is going to be able to fund it as well as us in order for it to move forward. So with that, I'll let Roger call on folks that...
Buck, do you have a question?
Gotta wonder how competitive the field is for the supply of hot mix and sealing oil, these things which have gone up so rapidly in the last few years. When you ask for bids for hot mix and you ask for bids for sealing oil, and I know you do it with a closed bid process, or I think you do, how many viable bidders do you get for each of those?
The hot mix, we usually have a couple is all in this area, but we also have neighboring counties that keep them honest, if you want to say, because we can go over to Chippewa and get it, but then the hauling costs are quite high. We have across the river, there's one, and then there's one out in Richmond. And then the oils, we have several. I think there's like a half a dozen or so.
So 2 for hot mix and 6 for sealing oils?
Yeah, about that. It's real close to that. But now some of those folks are buying each other out, and I don't know, they changed their names, so I don't know who's who, to keep up on that as much. But I recall a half a dozen or so. One of the issues that you just brought on that I thought was real interesting is apparently they're refining more cycles or more, they're getting more gas out of the refining process, which leaves less for us. Because that's where we get ours, is after they're squeezing more out of it. So the supply is the issue. And we've been asked to cut. I heard Chippewa County has been told that they can't give them any more oil. They have their own hot mix plant. We've been asked where we can cut back. We're holding them to their feet to the fire right now, but hopefully we'll be able to get our quantities that we want. Haven't heard that in hot mix, but we have in road oils.
Mr. Cranmer?
I was wondering how the bridges are doing these days. This is one of the years where, according to your information, that you'll be checking on them. Are those surveys complete now, and are there any seriously deficient bridges?
We replaced our last fracture critical bridge a couple years ago down in Katy. We have no more left on our system. I think the state may. But on our system, towns and county, no fracture critical. That's the lack of redundancy in them. But we do have others that are rated under 50, which are eligible for replacement with $80-20. They've been backing off on some of those dollars as well. Maybe skip a year in there, it sounds. But we have, and if it's under 70 or 80, I don't recall the number, then you can redeck it, and we evaluate that as well. So I think it is this year, if it that we look, and it's usually October, November time frame that we look. Thank you.
Mr. Mortensen, you had a question.
Yes, my wife kind of screamed when got the bill for the license tabs for the vehicles. And I said, well, the county was $10, and the state tacked on 20, it all adds up and really makes quite a difference.
Yes. Yes, I had my 3, and my dad let me know about that too. But he has 3. But it's really interesting. There are questions along those lines, and once people understand where the issues are, what the state regulations are, and the limits that are out there, what the options are, they'll say as long as they're fine with it after they ask the questions.
Steve, you had a question.
Yes, thanks. Tim, could you explain a little bit on what is your guideline, or what is it that you hope to for the longevity of a road after you've resurfaced it, and what are your senses are of the reason if it doesn't make that timeline before you would have to come back and readdress it? Have you got any input on that?
The guide that the engineers use is we should reseal our roads every 5 years, and what'll happen if we don't get to them? Some of it'll last 7. And we inspect them, and we'll let them go to 7 if we feel the condition is there, which will help those issues. What's going to happen is we're going to end up doing more of the higher maintenance, the higher labor-intensive maintenance, the crack seal, what we call the AMZ machine. It's the reverse vacuum cleaner that spits out the rock and the oil at the same time for the dips. You get the settling in the culverts and whatnot. A lot more of that maintenance things. The winter time brings up a lot of ancillary issues that aren't in any budgets. The sign knockdowns, the culvert issues, the washouts, and you don't see them with the grass there. You have to mow the grass to see them. So a lot of those issues are a lot of the spot improvements are getting a lot more attention, as well as the bridges. But every 5 years we try to seal it. And again, it's like shingles. If it's been 15 years, can I get by with another year without the walls starting to weep? So those are the types of questions we ponder.
Well, I was just kind of curious, given the fuel prices and everything going up, I'm kind of wondering if there isn't a possibility that the reason that the roads are deteriorating at a quicker rate would be because of the overweight on trucks coming out, because they too have got to try to make more out of the gallon.
Right, and that went from 80,000 pounds to 98,000 pounds, and yes, we've been testifying on that. WCHA has, and the theory is you add an axle, it's less pounds per square foot, but the whole truck still goes on the whole bridge. So, and the issue that we have is the mix with the hot mix is if you mix it harder so it doesn't rut, then it's brittle and it breaks and you got the cracks and then you get the flooding or you get the issues. I found one down where I live. You could drive a Volkswagen car in it. It was that big, and all that was hanging on was the blacktop. But then if it's too soft, then you get the rutting. So you got to have a balance in there, and the engineers will run through the analysis as to which is the best type.
Any other questions? If not, we'll end that. We'll end that with right now. Yeah. First,
I'd like to tell everybody that they have to pay me $10 if they haven't already for the refreshment fund. Thank you.
A couple of announcements before we take off. There's a packet on the county drug court in your file. That's a good. It's good just for reading, so that will bring you up to date a little bit. The other thing I wanted to mention: there are some citizen members in the crowd today. If you do wish to speak this morning at any time, you need to get approval of your supervisor to do that. We may have a little time for that. With that, we'll take a break here. If we could, please. While I think about it, some of you supervisors may have a question yet about some of the building stuff that was talked about earlier. Art Tobin is in the back of the room. If you got questions, just visit with Art on some of those things, and he'll answer the questions for you. At this time, then, we'll go to Resolution 4, which is the resolution approving the AFSCME contract language subsequent to July 1st, 2008. Darrell?
Mr. Chairman, I move approval of the resolution, and then, assuming it's seconded, I'd like to speak to it.
It has been seconded by King. And Darrell, you will...
Mr. Chairman, in March of this year, this county board, or the previous county board, approved the respective AFSCME contracts, and we approved them prior to their being approved by the respective bargaining units. One key provision in those contracts included an indication that there would be a 1% salary lift as of the 1st of July if the respective bargaining units agreed to the terms and conditions of a health reimbursement account in exchange for going with a high deductible plan. That was a key piece of the bargaining. It's mutually desirable, but we really needed to move in that direction to begin controlling healthcare costs. And the reason that we're bringing the resolution back here today is, even though conceptually the respective bargaining units did in fact reach agreement on those terms and conditions, they were just unable to get all of the scheduled union votes completed by the 1st of July. So there was no breach of faith in the terms and conditions that we had, but technically, since that date of the 1st of July did not include their votes, we are bringing this resolution back and simply requesting that we waive the date of the 1st of July, because they did comply with the spirit of the intent, and as a mutual gesture of good faith, we do want to now move forward with the approved bargains that the county board approved in March, and the unions, then you'll see the 3 dates in July. So that is maybe more of an explanation that you need, but it's simply waiving the date of July 1st.
Thank you, Darrell. I think the explanation was appropriate because of the number of new members that we do have on the board. Are there any questions of Darrell at this time? If not, yes, Ed, or Ed, Dave.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When will this kick in for those members that want to enroll in that? Is it retroactive, or where do we go with that?
Darrell?
It's optional for the first 2 years of the bargain. By the end of the contract, then all must be in it. Obviously, it's in the employee's interest to get in as soon as possible, but they're not forced to go in right away. They've got the two years. By the 3rd year, everyone must be in.
So there's no deadline at all?
Well, the 3rd year.
Any other questions? If not, I'd ask for approval of this resolution. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say aye. Carry. Then at this time, we'll get into the resolution authorizing the borrowing of not to exceed, if you'll remember, it says your minutes here, or your agenda says $3 million, but you have a new resolution on blue paper that was set on your desk this morning, and that resolution now reads $3,180,000. Will someone bring that to the floor? Darrell?
Mr. Chairman, I'm moving at this point the original resolution because that is the resolution that was approved by Finance. I'd like to speak to it after it's seconded, and then I'm also prepared to offer a subsequent amendment.
Motion made by Darrell, seconded by Mr. Malik to approve the, to bring the original resolution to the floor, and they'll speak to it now. So,
When Finance Committee voted on the original resolution, we were dealing with the information that we knew at that time. Those of you that have reviewed the minutes of Finance will see that we also discussed the radio base stations, but we did not have the computation of the full amounts. So you will see that we discussed that. We talked about it from a contingency standpoint, and the known amounts that we had at that time were $3 million. Subsequent to that, we now have a better quantification. You can see that it now works out to be $3,180,000. And keep in mind that the whole process that we're undergoing here today is not authorizing the borrowing of money. We are not today approving borrowing $3,180,000. It's a preparatory step to continue to fine-tune what we ultimately will need to borrow, and these are specific capital items. We're talking about the heating and air conditioning system here in this building. We're talking about the replacement of the building, and we're now adding in the radio base stations. What we are putting in place is an amount not to exceed. So we are simply authorizing an amount not to exceed, and we will be coming back to this board once those numbers are fully refined, and it could be back to the $3 million, but it will not exceed the $3,180,000, and this is the preparatory statement that we must have in place for bond counsel. I would also stress that this requires a 2/3 vote in order to authorize the amount that we're talking about today. So I would urge your affirmative consideration of the resolution that is in front of you, which will be subsequently amended, as I indicated, to $3,180,000 as a placeholder amount. So when we come back to you after these projects have been refined and we have the very specific information, that amount will be not more than and likely less than $3,180,000. So at this point, Mr. Chairman, I would move to amend the resolution that is now on the floor and strike the figure $3 million in the several places where it occurs in the resolution, and instead insert the numerical amount $3,180,000, and that amendment then would be consistent with the new blue resolution that has been handed out. This language and amount would then be correct. And if there are any questions, we do have our bond counsel here today. He can correct any misstatements I made with respect to the phraseology, the not to exceed, and the requirement for the 2/3, but I would move the amendment.
you heard the amendment. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Cranmer seconds that. Any other discussion? Mr. Peterson.
Thank you. Do you anticipate earning any interest on this borrowing because of the project going over a long period of time? What about earned interest, I guess, on the $3 million? Do you anticipate that? And if so, would that amount be enough to cover the $180,000?
Well, I could let either Joe or Michelle respond to that more, but specifically, we're not calculating in earned interest. It would be probably more correctly phrased to indicate when we would take the borrowings. We are simply at this point authorizing the ability to go forward with a bond referendum. But I'll let Michelle and Joe respond to that.
Any interest earned on the bonds cannot exceed the bond interest rate because we run into an arbitrage issue, so it can't be offset against project costs.
What do you anticipate doing with the earned interest then?
My understanding is that these projects are in works. We are going to start incurring costs, so we are going to start spending those proceeds.
Good morning. I'm Joe Murray from Springstead. I'm your financial advisor at Springstead, not your bond counsel. The question about, Michelle was correct about the arbitrage issues, and it's our understanding that the projects will take place very quickly, so there won't be a whole lot of interest earnings associated with them anyhow. My understanding is that the goal is to have the roof done here as quickly as possible, start the HVAC, and have all the construction projects done by the early part, springtime of next year. So it's moving very quickly. There won't be a whole lot of interest income associated with it. That money would stay in the debt service fund and would go to help pay off the interest cost in the debt service, but I don't anticipate that being a large number based on the construction timing anticipated.
Mr. Marzoff.
I'd like to address the gentleman from Springstead with just a curiosity question. Will the changing of these numbers in any way create a surcharge to the fee that the county is paying you for this study?
In regard to our fee, yes, our fees are based on the size of the issue. So it's based on a sliding scale based on the size of the issue. The first $1 million is $8,500 as a flat fee. After that, it's $2 per $1,000 of issue. So the difference between the $3 million and the $3.18 million is roughly $360 difference in fees to our firms. The cost of issuance associated with the total issue is just under, on the back side of the blue resolution, you'll see these new schedules based on the 3.18. You'll see the cost of issuance down there at about just under $24,750. Our fee is just under $13,000 of that. The other cost of issuance associated with that is paying for bond counsel. You need to get a legal opinion associated with the issue to say it does qualify to be tax exempt. That's about $5,500. Needing to go to get a bond rating to go out to the public market where we'll contact Moody's. We think we'll be able to reaffirm the county's AA3 rating, which is very good to achieve these rates. That's also about $5,500. So that's the cost breakdown. But the difference between $3 million and $3.18 in terms of what it means to Springstead is $360.
Any other questions of Joe or Michelle? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dave?
Mr. Chair, could Art kind of give us what's going on with the roof? What are we doing with that, for one thing? And then with the HVAC, can you explain what's going on there? And evidently, we've thrown out the geothermal altogether, I understand. Is that correct?
At this point, that is correct, yep.
Okay, then I guess one of my questions is, how did we go from or why are we going up over $100,000 on the roof?
Art, you want to answer that?
From the original bid.
Good morning, everyone. To answer the question on the roof, when we first started probing into the problems that we had with the roof, suppliers of either a TPO roof or a PVC roof system were that we would take out a section of the insulation that was on that roof. In talking with different architects and engineers, taking a look at the long-term scope of it and also the current R value that we have on our roof, it was in the best interest of the county that we removed completely the insulation that's on the roof right now and that we'd go to an adhered roof system. We had looked at a mechanical roof system, but to do with the jail and everything else with the high-density concrete, we're going to what we're looking at is what I called a fully adhered system. Originally, we were going to where a section is put down 8 feet. It's mechanically fastened every 12 to 16 inches. And then another layer is laid out again, and it's basically pleated across the roof. Further review of the roof, and we've done some preliminary roof samples right now. It's believed that, again, to take the complete wet insulation that is on that roof right now, we have an open cell insulation or a bead insulation on the roof right now. To take that off and to start out from square one, go right down to the cement decking that's there right now, and put an adhered system on, put a insulation, a tapered insulation, and going from basically where we are right now as I believe is a 16.5 R value, and we'd be looking at possibly going to an R30. And we're working with those numbers right now and trying to get numbers back from Focus on Energy so that we can also get rebate monies back on those issues too. I don't have the R values on in front of me right now to quote exactly what we have on the roof. In dealing with the difference on costs on the geothermal versus high efficiency boilers and chillers, we looked at very simply 2 things: the money that the county would have to put out and also the payback. The geothermal to do with our system and tying it in, and also future expansion, it just did not, in this instance, did not pay to go with geothermal. We actually were able to shave, I think, $900,000 from going from a geothermal system down to high efficiency boilers and chillers to go with that system instead. So that's why we're doing what we're doing. We're also looking at an option on that roof as to go from an option on the heating system of also adding ice storage or thermal storage, which is a system by way that you're making your daily usage, you're making it off-peak hours at night versus making it during the day, and we're getting a better rate back on that from our energy company. So that's why we're looking at doing that. Some of the other things that we're looking at doing with the roof, we're looking at solar collectors. We're also looking at over the new Huber is a black roof. It's an adhered roof down on that one. We're looking at seeing what the cost, bidding that as a option to paint that white and shaving off and saving about 60% energy costs off of that one also. So reflecting the heat back. Yes?
I was wondering when the 2 projects, you anticipate when the 2 projects may be done.
What we're looking for is we're looking at working with both companies right now, seeing that we just got out of with finance. We're working with KFI right now, doing bid specs and getting ready and trying to get those numbers back. We're hoping that looking at a 5 to 5.5 month turnaround on the HVA system. And on the roofing system, we're looking at bidding in February. Our engineer architect firm believes that there is a possibility, better than a possibility, of saving 10% on our costs when we bid in February versus bidding now. All the firms that are out there that do these type of roof systems are booked up for the year, and it would be a larger cost. And if we bid it in February when they're in their slow season, we'd look at starting that roof process or starting in about April or May, and we'd be looking at possibly about 1.5 to 2 months, and we'd be done. So.
In regard to those solar collectors, will that be done at the same time, or are we going to have a new roof put on and then have to rip up part of the roof to put the solar collectors on?
That's all part of what we're doing right now. The last thing we want to do is put a brand new roof on there and take a utility knife and start slicing and dicing and cutting holes into it. So no, we're our finance chair is very respectful in that point, and he said, let's not take a 5-foot or a 500-foot view, let's take a 10,000-foot view, and let's do some planning ahead of time. So, appreciate that.
Dave?
I apologize if I missed this earlier, but somebody mentioned the fact of that roof not being that old, and was there any accountability to the previous, whoever put that roof on and guarantees?
We're looking at right now, we're looking at a 16-year lifespan on the current roof that we're on right now. Again, our finance chair asked to investigate that. We had a 10-year warranty on that roof that's on there. So,
Steve?
Yes, did I hear you say that the solar collectors are included in this price that you
no,
got?
I did not say that. No.
You said you were planning.
We were looking into what the cost of what solar panels were, trying to go, what the new word is, carbon neutral, trying to get as much payback, trying to be as smart as we can when we're looking at that. We're also looking at the fact, one of the reasons it gives us time by bidding in February is, can we put a structure in on the roof that we have right now? The ballast will be completely taken off of this roof, and it'll be a white roof. What we're looking at doing is, can we put the structure down so that if the county decides to go with solar collectors and put it on the roof, it can be put on at a later date, but at least that base is down. Like the question was asked, are we going to put a new roof on and then tear it up, a year or 6 months from down the road? That is absolutely not our intention, or will it happen. So we're trying to put as much planning in ahead of time as what we possibly can for solar collectors.
Okay, so will this new roof, proposed new roof, and the proposed HVAC system, what kind of life expectancy can we expect out of that?
The HVAC system, what we're looking at right now is we're looking at a 25-year. The roof that we're putting on, the specs that will be written for a 30-year warranty.
Dan, you had a question.
You're talking about the roof and the HVAC unit. Is that also proposed in your development? Because we just approved a committee to start looking into how to kind of be energy efficient on our own buildings. Is that 25-year unit going to be able to adapt to any future, like you talk about the solar and talk about any other type of?
One of the reasons that we're working with KFI is because they are a state-of-the-art company. We're looking at doing it as putting in stages into this building. If the demand changes, we can add, instead of a whole new plant, we can add another stage. If the demand is only at 50% at a time, you're not running 100% of your plant. For heating and air conditioning and wasting 50%, what we're looking at is a stage on, stage off type of system, both for heating and for cooling. The other thing we talked about extensively in finance and also with KFI, should we build on to this building? Should we add on north, south, different pod, another part of the jail, another part of the sheriff's department? It might be at the point at that time where we can add into that a geothermal or more of a carbon neutral outlook on that addition. For this one right now, we really don't know where we're going to expand, or if we are going to expand, or when that would be that we would do that. So that's why we're taking the avenues that we are and trying to be as respectful as we can for our environment.
Sharon?
Yes, thank you. I think it might be important, having sat in on these finance committee meetings, for the board to know that the warranty that will come with this proposed new roof is a current dollar warranty program. In other words, there's no reduction in the amount of warranty dollars based on the age of the roof. Whatever, if the roof fails, whatever it costs to fix it or replace it at that time will be fully covered. Am I correct on that?
That is correct.
Any other questions? Bill?
I guess this one is more for Darrell. Does it make sense to go forward with a referendum now on the bonding when we don't know the cost of solar collectors? Might it be better to have it on in April, have the roof referendum on the or the bonding referendum for the roof in the springtime, and we have been able to research the solar collector issue.
Well, that's a couple things. One, we've got a time-critical issue with respect to the existing roof. It is leaking rather profusely, and so that's a sensitive issue. The second issue, the solar collectors, I think Art did address. While we're looking very carefully at the possibility, maybe I even should say likelihood, that at some point in the future we would move in the direction of solar collectors of some kind on the roof. What we're wanting to make certain that we do now, and that's what we are anticipating, what kind of base support unit or what is necessary to prepare for that contingency in the future. That will be built into what we're doing, because we're not ready at this point, nor would we be in the spring, to make a decision with respect to solar panels on the roof. That's down the road. What we want to make certain is when we reach that fork in the road, we're not up there tearing up the roof, voiding the warranty, and bringing ourselves back to square one.
Shane?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is there any value in the HVAC equipment we have now? And do you have any plans to, keep it or get rid of it or scrap it or?
Because I'm in a public meeting, I can't say what I'd like to do with that system that we have right now. No, there really isn't any resale value or anything that we have.
Okay, we'll have Cindy read back the amendment so that we all know what we're voting on.
Sorry, just a minute, it's taking me, I typed quite a bit. There was a motion by Supervisor Standifer, second by Supervisor Cranmer, to amend the resolution to strike the $3 million amount within the resolution and insert $3,180,000. And that amendment would be consistent with the revised resolution.
Okay, now this takes a 2/3 vote. Is that right? No, this doesn't.
Well, I think procedurally, we're amending the resolution. We could do this with a simple majority, but then it's going to take us to the critical vote, and that is the amended resolution will take a 2/3 vote.
Well, let's vote on the amendment, and that's just a simple majority. You've heard the amendment, and you've heard a second of the amendment. All those in favor of that amendment? Not for this. All those in favor of that answer by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Aye. Okay. That's one. Okay, now we're going to get to the main vote, and the main vote is simply that we're going to borrow the blue section. Yeah. And that would take a 2/3 majority.
May I stress, we're not borrowing the money.
No.
This is simply authorizing the ability to begin preparing for and refining the number. We will be back to you with a resolution requesting the specificity of the borrowing.
Okay, and this will take a roll call vote. Dave?
On the radio-based replacement for that $284,000, Casey, I think, is still here. That's we're going to install, what, 12, Casey, the first year?
36, actually.
36 total.
36 total.
So the first year, we're going to install 18, and then the following year, 2010, we're going to do the other 18, is that correct?
Initially, this project for replacement of all our radio bases throughout the county, our 5 sites that we operate, was placed into capital outlay and spread over 2 fiscal years, 2008 and 2009. Because of this approach that the county may be taking with the funding being available at one time, this will result in our project being able to take place immediately or when the funds are available. So there's no need to spread it out over 2 years any longer like the initial approach would have been with capital outlay.
Thanks, Casey. Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to clarify something in my head. These costs for improvements, would these normally go on the department's budgets normally, or is this a normal procedure to go after funding separate from their budgets? And what I'm leading into, as we come into budget crunching time, and we're trying to minimize the department's budgets or get their control of their costs and their budgets, are we actually kind of going outside now and creating new debt or expenses that really don't even balance what our objective is to kind of bring down and control the budget? Am I making some sense of my question?
Bear in mind, this is a capital improvement project. The rest of the other is operations.
But that's why I was just questioning, does that still, even in, like improvements outlay, doesn't that fall still into certain departments' budgets? Or is this just comes out of a general fund type of cost?
I'm going to let you answer.
Yeah, for amounts of this size, generally we can't afford it within a department's budget, that it spikes the expenses too high. Following a kind of a criteria of capital outlay of a long-term investment in your property, your infrastructure, it makes more sense to have this done this way. We don't have the money in hand to do it. Borrowing it, paying for it over time makes sense. It's really the only way the county can do it right now. Smaller items, even the base station items, in the past may have been something that we could have done as an operational cost, but doing it all at once elevated the amount, and this makes this possible to do now. As far as it affects the levy limit, we're borrowing the debt service on that, or the debt levy for the borrowing is actually outside of the levy limit. So that's why these items look the way they do. You'll see other items when we do the budget next month that will be capital in nature, but they will be essentially part of the department's operating expenses.
Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The question, I guess, where I would have on this for this radio base replacement is, I thought I heard him say that typically comes out of the general fund over a 2-year average. We're getting ready to bond money for 8 years. This is like, I look at it like buying something on a credit card. It's only good, I don't know what the life expectancy of a base station and how often it's got to be replaced, but if it doesn't go more than 8 years, then I would have to question why it's inside a bond like this. So I guess my question is, how long do they expect this to last?
As Casey is approaching to address that, just getting to the borrowing aspect of it, that last year when the budget was put together, the idea was to budget for half of it as a borrowed item in the 08 budget, do the other half in 09. We're now in the 8th month of that first year, so it just made sense to move them together, but the idea had been to borrow this amount all along. You can explain how long this is going to last.
Our radio bases that we currently operate with were installed in 1993. We are at 15 years of life. At year 12, our current bases were no longer supported with computerized updates. We have support from a technical side as far as when they break down, we can still get them fixed. There are still tools out there to fix them. Shelf life is about 12 years for support on a computerized and version upgrade approach, and I expect at least that from the bases we're going to be installing. A question, if I could add to it, there's also is a driving force for this project other than the fact that they are 15 years old. The FCC is mandating all of our transmissions be narrow banded. Currently we are operating with a wide band, and that's the frequency peak and valley. This mandate, which is an unfunded mandate from the FCC, comes in play in the year 2013. the county has chosen 2011 as a target date for this narrow banding, just to make sure we fall within the guidelines that the FCC is laying in front of us. And that will also give the end users, the police, fire, and ambulance, time to upgrade their equipment and get the necessary replacements that they need as well.
John?
Chuck, are there any state or federal revenues coming into the courthouse that could be tapped through rents or whatever to help offset some of the long-standing costs here? The courts, the Office on Aging, any of the programs that are mandated by governments above us?
I'm sure there's not enough of those. The revenues that we're aware of, we generally go through them all as part of the budget and use them to offset the levy, or they go into the general fund, and we use those to balance the budget projections. But I'm not aware of any specifics for any of these three projects.
Could I add to that, if I might? What you're seeing in front of you as far as the radio-based project goes, and it's a very good question about grant availability, is the result of the county taking advantage of a grant opportunity last year. Our fire base operation has been replaced already. We have 4 bases, radio bases, that were replaced through an OJA, Homeland Security grant, in which the county realized over $71,000 in savings on that 80-20 grant to replace those radio bases. If that didn't happen, those would be added to what you see in front of you, but what you have in front of you is the result of a grant opportunity.
Darrell, you had a question.
No, it's not a question. I just want to correct something I said earlier. Please do not let this get back to my former colleagues, but I mixed up fractions. I had in mind that it takes 24 votes, but I realized that 24 votes is not 2/3, it is 3/4. So I apologize for that. Don't let any of the guys back at the bank know I did that. Takes 24 votes.
Okay, you have the question before you then, that the resolution that we are voting on, the amended resolution, which is in the blue form. And this will be a roll call vote. Pardon me? This will be a roll call vote.
Ken Colby? Yes. Cindy Leonard? Yes. Linda Lucky? Yes. Shane Demuling? Yes. Laura Tomerdahl? Yes. Dan Rabel? No. Alfred Schrank? Yes. Julie Spear? Yes. Joe Hurchin? Yes. Bill Peavy?
Yes.
Gerald Peterson?
Yes.
Charlie Grant?
Yes.
Greg Telejohn?
Yes.
Roger Larson?
Yes.
Richard King?
Yes.
Frederick Horn?
Yes.
John Mortensen?
Yes.
Esther Wentz?
Yes.
Jean Ritz?
Yes.
David Peterson?
Yes.
David Osnes?
Yes.
Lawrence Sather?
Yes.
Richard Marzoff?
Yes.
Sharon Norton Bauman?
Yes.
Roger Rubholz?
Yes.
Bill Cranmer?
Yes.
Daryl Stanifer?
Yes.
John Borup?
Yes.
Clarence Malick?
Yes.
Steve Hermson?
Yes.
We'll be moving forward with the nursing home advisory referendum question. Now, I had the opportunity to sit in with the committee that drafted and arrived at the question, and I thought they did a great job of trying to make sure that they didn't word it so that it was slanted in any way, that it's open to whoever is going to go into the polling booth and vote, so that they can vote their own mind, but they should know then, based on the question, what they're voting for. We'll open it up then at this particular time for questions. Darrell? First, come to the floor first, right. You're bringing it to the floor and.
Well, I was going to, I got beaten to the punch by my colleague from North Hudson.
Okay, John Borup and Julie Spear. Okay. Okay.
We did work for several months trying to come up with as objective a ballot question as we thought we could achieve. And we also tried to achieve a statement that would be supported unanimously by our committee. And you will see the vote on this question was unanimous as it comes out of our committee. We recognized early on that given our own devices, if each one of us individually was charged with the responsibility of coming up with the question, we'd probably have 31 different versions, because we all would word it slightly differently. So we did in fact work to come up with a statement that would be unanimously supported by our committee, that we would present that as our committee report, and we would respectfully urge your consideration, if you could see yourselves to do that, to accept that as the question. We, of course, recognize the right of any supervisor to amend this in any way that they see fit. But we recognize if we begin the process of trying to wordsmith that, again, with 31 supervisors, we could wind up with, frankly, a mess. And so with all due respect, our committee is unanimously presenting this for your consideration and urging your affirmative support of the question.
Dick wishes to speak also.
I think too, Darrell, that after we came up with our referendum, then Greg Timmerman came up with a explanation, and that explanation is right on with our referendum. So probably some of the people haven't seen that yet, but they've got it now. So we'd be voting on everything if we vote on the question.
In other words, we would be voting, when we vote, we'll vote on the question along with the explanation. Buzz, you had a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There is something on the revised resolution from Corporation Council, and I respectfully ask that we clarify that before we proceed further. On the back of the resolution, there are two conflicting statements, which, this is the revised resolution now, which I would like to see become reconciled before we proceed any further. At the top of the back page, it says, "Further be it resolved that the explanatory statement is approved," and then beneath it, the last sentence of the bold type, "The Ad hoc Nursing Home Committee has not reviewed or approved the explanatory statement." So there's a conflict there, and I wondered if we could resolve that.
You want to answer that?
I'm not sure what the conflict is, Buzz. It was the second statement. The statement that I put into this resolution was explanatory, that subsequent to the ad hoc committee's development of the question, I discovered that I did have to do an explanation where we had discussed at the committee that no explanation would be necessary. Since this is a resolution that the county board adopts, the second further that the explanatory statement is approved is the approval of that statement by the county board. There is no necessity for the committee to approve that statement at this time, and I simply wanted to explain to the county board that if there's any problems with the explanatory statement, the questions should be directed at me and not blamed on the committee.
Thank you, Corporation Counsel. Could I respectively ask then that after the word "is approved" at the top of the back of this statement, that we insert the words "by the county board" so that it isn't confusing with the bolded statement at the bottom there? If that's the intent of Corporation Counsel.
Before we go to that, let's hear from Sharon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. After I received this notice from Greg about the fact that he would be wording the explanation of this referendum question, I did a little research and pulled up the state statutes, which I believe Greg may have with him today. I would like a clarification, Greg, on whether or not this board must approve the explanatory statement that you have devised, or whether by statute you have the right and the duty to wordsmith the explanatory statement by and of yourself.
The language of the statute is interesting in that it directs the Corporation Counsel to develop an explanatory statement. However, I wouldn't want to assume that that gives me the authority to ignore what the county board might suggest be included, and I would rather have the county board approve that language in the resolution, even though one could interpret the statutory language as taking that outside the county board's realm. I just as soon see how it goes here first today before I try to assume authority over the board that I'm uncomfortable with.
Do you have that statutory language with you?
I know I was supposed to bring it and I forgot it. Do you want me to go get it?
Well, I won't pursue this any further except to say that I really would like an interpretation of what it means. Because if it means that you have the authority and the duty to come up with the explanatory language, then we as a board really don't have to vote on that, in my opinion. And if it doesn't mean that, then we have to vote on it.
Well, the statute reads that for county questions, the statement, referring to the explanatory statement, shall be prepared by the Corporation Counsel. But again, I'm not so sure that that doesn't mean that the county board shouldn't be approving that statement, but that rather than having a committee prepare it, it's the Corporation Counsel that would present it to the county board for consideration.
Buck?
As one of the other lawyers in the room, I find that a reasonable explanation of a statute, if that's any comfort to the rest of you. I just can't help but think that we could massage this particular question and its explanation until the cows come home. But I don't think that's what the majority of us want to do. And I'd like to test that premise, whether we aren't in fact ready to just plain vote on it, by making the motion to end debate. And I do so move.
I'll second it.
And it requires, of course, a 2/3 vote, up or down, on whether to end debate. If it passes, then we go to the motion.
You heard the motion and the second, the same as I did. So we are now proceeding to the vote on the referendum question. And the
No, point of order. No, sir, I made a motion to end debate. And only if the motion prevails by a 2/3 vote would we go to the main motion. If the motion to end debate fails, then we continue debating.
I got you. Okay.
And amending.
Thank you.
And I've got 3.
Okay. Okay, the roll call vote then to end debate.
Cindy Leonard?
Just to clarify, we are voting to end debate, right? So if I,
That's so.
okay, yes.
Linda Lucky? Yes. Shane Demuling? No. Laura Tomerdahl? Dan Rabel?
No.
Alfred Trank?
No.
Julie Spear?
Yes.
Joel Hurchin?
Yes.
Bill Peavy?
Yes.
Gerald Peterson?
No.
Charlie Grant?
Yes.
Greg Telejohn?
No.
Roger Larson?
No.
Richard King?
No.
Frederick Horn?
No.
John Mortensen?
No.
Esther Wentz?
No.
Jean Ritz?
Yes.
David Peterson?
No.
David Osnes?
No.
Lauren Sather?
Yes.
Richard Marzoff?
No.
Sharon Norton Bauman?
Yes.
Roger Rebholz?
Yes.
Bill Cranmer?
No.
Daryl Standifer?
Yes.
John Borup?
Yes.
Clarence Malick?
Yes.
Steve Hermson?
Yes.
And Kenneth Colby. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, yes. Should be 16 no then. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 no.
16 no.
2, 3, 4.
Okay, the vote is 16 no and 14 yes. So debate goes on. Buzz?
Thank you. I'd like to begin by thanking those who drafted the referendum question regarding the nursing home. I know that that's a difficult subject, but I truly believe that in fairness to the constituents who perhaps are not as well informed on this subject as each of us is trying to become, may mistakenly interpret the wording of the resolution question, the referendum question, to be somewhat misleading in that it implies in my head that all of the tax dollars that fund our nursing home, all of the dollars that fund our nursing home are tax dollars, and I don't think that that's the case. I would also like to thank each of you who voted to not end discussion. I was concerned that I wouldn't have a chance to speak, and I'm grateful that I do have a chance to speak. I would like to thank the Corporation Counsel also for his interpretation of the Wisconsin statute that puts the explanatory question into the referendum proposal for us. And are there any of you who did not receive the two-page handout that I prepared? If so, I will see that you get them now. One is yellow and the other one is gray. You can pretty much read this on your own, but I guess for the benefit of the public that might be watching this on television, I will read what I'm sharing with you. Dear Supervisors, before we vote on item 6 on today's agenda, resolution approving advisory referendum question relating to the county nursing home, please consider the following. Premise: in his letter to St. Croix County Board Supervisors dated August 15, 2008, our Corporation Counsel, Greg Timmerman, has indicated that Wisconsin state law requires Corporation Counsel to prepare an explanatory statement of a referendum question. Greg then adds, because of that, I have revised the resolution and added an explanatory statement for the board's consideration. Comment? I both accept and endorse our Corporation Counsel's revision of the original resolution, which was sent to us in the August 19, 2008 mailing, as well as his rationale for having done so, namely to be compliant with Wisconsin state law. Concern: At the same time, however, I am cognizant that if we as a board approve the amended resolution proposed by and sent to us from Greg Timmerman, we will also be voting to adopt the referendum question itself as originally finalized by the Ad hoc Nursing Home Referendum Committee. That question reads, should St. Croix County continue to operate a public nursing home if property tax dollars are needed to fund its operation? It is indicated on page 29 of the 2007 Health and Human Services Annual Report that a comparatively small portion of the operating revenue for our nursing home is derived from property tax dollars. 78.4% of the remaining nursing home revenue received in 2007 came collectively from private pay, from Medicare, and from Medicaid residents, and from intergovernmental transfer funds, rate appeals, and miscellaneous funds. For your reference, I excerpted this from the 2007 Health and Human Services Annual Report, in which a portion is titled 2007 Nursing Home Revenues, $5,883,930. As you can see, this portion is the only portion that represents tax levy dollars. And I might also add that at this meeting last summer, I cited for your reference an article in the Wisconsin Counties Magazine that talks about the unjust practice of the state of Wisconsin to intercept IGT funds intended for nursing homes and putting those funds into the general fund. So these dollars are really lower than what they should be if our state government is acting with a conscience. Therefore, approximately 4/5 of our nursing homes' operating revenue is derived from sources other than property taxes. It is for this reason that the referendum question It is for this reason that I therefore ask you to support this motion to adopt Corporation Council's revised referendum resolution along with the addition of the word partially I guess I need to finish. I'm sorry, I need to finish this. I therefore reiterate my initial August 7th request for your support in changing the wording of the nursing home referendum question. In addition, I am also asking you to now endorse a minor but important change in the wording of the resolution we received from Corporation Council. Basically, the changes I'm advocating are in the right-hand column. They are bolded, but the intent is not to have them bolded in the referendum question on the ballot. It's simply for your ease of interpretation at this time. I'm simply asking that before the word fund, that we insert the word partially to more accurately reflect how it is that we fund our nursing home. Therefore, I will reintroduce my motion. I ask that you support the following motion: to adopt Corporation Council's revised nursing home referendum question resolution, along with the addition of the word partially, as indicated in the handout you each should have received, and as indicated on this overhead transparency. And I would request a roll call vote. Thank you.
You've heard the motion by Buzz, seconded by Colby, to change the wording of the resolution to add the word partially to both that and to the explanatory statement by Corporation Counsel. You've heard the first and the second. Is there any discussion? Darrell.
I would certainly take issue with the statement of the supervisor that this is a minor change. The addition of the word partially significantly and fundamentally changes the question that we're asking on the ballot. The question that we were asked to determine is the attitude of the taxpayers with respect to continuing to operate a public nursing home if the continuation is predicated upon the use of tax levy dollars in order to do that. By virtue of the fact that we are placing on the ballot a statement, continue to operate a public nursing home, clearly implies that we already are operating a public nursing home. And I think almost any reasonable person will understand that revenues come from residents of the home, whether it's private pay or Medicare or Medicaid. None of that is at issue. And as a matter of fact, most of the people that are raising questions with respect to the future of the nursing home are raising questions based not on whether or not there are revenues from a variety of sources coming, but they're very specifically and very pointedly raising the question about the subsidy that is necessary and increasing and projected to grow that falls upon the levy of St. Croix County. We've already indicated that the severe and significant budget crisis that we're under is likely to result in personnel contractions, program contractions. There is only so much money. And the concern that I believe taxpayers have is on a priority basis, what should be the places that are used for levy dollars to go? That's why this question is there. Does the county place that level of priority on the nursing home that they would want to say, yes, we want you to continue operating the nursing home if it takes property tax levy dollars to make up that shortfall, or no, we don't want you to do that? That's a very straightforward question. So I, again, take issue with the characterization that the addition of one word is a modest change. It fundamentally changes the question that we're asking, and I urge you to defeat the amendment.
Buck, you had a question or a statement?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I too need to speak against the modification that's been proposed. The numbers that were presented from the 2007 Health and Human Services Annual Report, and I have not compared them to make certain of their veracity. Let's assume them to be exactly what they purport to be. Indicate that some 80% of the expense of the nursing home comes from sources other than the tax levy. Well, that's in fact very close to the percentage of the highway department. You know, Tim showed us a pie chart earlier today, and the tax levy is just a shade under 18% of the operations of the highway department. I think that's, to me, that's a similar message to what Supervisor Standifer said, that any reasonable voter is going to know that there are a variety of funding sources for the nursing home. The IGT number, and we could all wish that state policy were different than what it is, and that the IGT, intergovernmental transfer, could be larger, but over the course of the last 2 years, as the predecessor county board was studying this question about the nursing home, we heard continually that IGT is not going to go up, it's going to go down. If we put the word partially into this referendum, we're going to get the public into that discussion. complicating and diverting the question of what does partially mean? Does it mean 1/10 of 1%? Does it mean 99%? What? I mean, there are a whole range of things. This predecessor board also heard that the cost of labor and fringes will continue to increase, and that within, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but my memory tells me within 5 years we would be subsidizing the nursing home for twice what we now are. So it would go up from $1.25 million a year to over 2.5. For those reasons, I think the word partially takes us and the voting public into a morass of questions that are not central to the fundamental question. If one were going to try to improve this question that the committee worked for 3 months to create, there are other things that aren't addressed in the question that I personally feel are more important than whether the word partially modifies funding. The predecessor board heard countless words from our own experts and from others to indicate that the existing building is rife with deferred maintenance, so it needs significant infusion of capital expenditure if we're going to stay in that building. But furthermore, all the experts we talked to said we should be building a new building. Remember that the proposal from the Christian Community Homes organization was to build a new building in the range of $10 to $12 million. Another of the experts that we had came in with a similar prediction. So I think the question as it's worded by the committee, which only talks about tax dollars to fund its operation, completely ignores tax dollars to fund construction of a new building. That's a pretty important item. What would the bond cost be for a $10 to $12 million building? It certainly would be significant. The question as worded says, should St. Croix County continue to operate a public nursing home? Well, that could raise a nice question. What do we mean by continue? Perpetually? Perpetually continue? Continue for 5 years? Continue for 15 years, the immediate life of a new building? I think that that's a question that could properly be introduced into the public debate. And the third issue that I think is an important one is it doesn't mention where the nursing home, the public nursing home, should be. We heard previously that the residents of the St. Croix County Nursing Home, the health center, typically come from about a 16-mile radius of New Richmond. Well, that would suggest to me that the new nursing home could be built somewhere between Somerset and Deer Park, somewhere between the North County line and Roberts, and it would be serving the population. It would be within the circle of where most of the residents come. Wouldn't the folks of Roberts become a whole lot more excited about voting for continuing to operate a public nursing home if they knew it was going to be located in Roberts? Certainly would suit the families whose people now travel to New Richmond. Same thing for Star Prairie, for Deer Park, for other places where if we've got to build a new home, might as well build it near somebody who supports it. So I have those three concerns about the question, which I think are all valid and vital concerns of interest to the taxpayers and the voters of this county and the residents who might use a nursing home supported by our county tax dollars. And if we are going to approve one change to the committee's work, I think we ought to include the other three changes that I've just sketched for you. So I'm opposed to changing it at all.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I attended the last meeting of the ad hoc committee that came up with this question, and I'm really here to speak to you about the struggles that they went through to come up with any question that would pass a 5-member vote. Therefore, I am very much against changing any of their wording, because it seems to me that we negate the work that this committee went through for 3 to 4 months by changing a word. My other question is similar to Supervisor Malik's. What does the word partially mean? It could mean anything to me. The citizens of this county certainly know, by virtue of this original question, that we have supported as a county this nursing home. So I just think it muddies up the water to change the intent of the question that the committee worked on. And in observing their work, I observed that they came from a divergent group of opinions and worked very hard to come up with a question that would pass muster of all 5 of them. So I would ask that you vote against this amendment.
Lauren?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have 2 things. One of which is if we start altering this question, we could be here for weeks. My second comment is if it says, would you continue to operate a public nursing home if property tax dollars were needed? Well, if implies that there may or may not be some or a lot or a little of funding. So to add partially, and I respect Buzz's concern, but I'm already reading if, meaning if it's needed. So some years it may need some funding, some may not. It appeared almost to be redundant to me, so I don't think we need to change the wording. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Buzz?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Each of you who has spoken against my suggested change in the referendum question has certainly muddied the waters more than my suggestion that we add one simple word, partially, and vote on it. You're bringing things into the question that were not intended in any way whatsoever by my suggestion that we add the word partially. I move the question.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. Is that a motion to end debate? Needs a second, not debatable, 2/3 vote. Then.
Okay, you've heard the motion by Supervisor Marzoff and seconded by Shane Demling to move for the question to be called. To end debate, well, it's in debate, end debate and call for the question. You wanted to move the question. Okay. You got me coming and going today. Okay, the motion is to end debate. So that'll be a roll call vote.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a humble question? What are we ending debate on? Are we ending debate on Buzz's recommendation for partially?
That's the way I take it, yeah.
Okay, ready? Linda Lucky? Shane Demling? Laura Tomerdahl? Dan Rabel? Alfred Schrank? I'm sorry, yes? Okay.
I got a question. Are we voting on Buzz's motion, or are we voting on just the argument or debating partial?
To end the debate on his question.
I vote yeah.
Julie Spear? Yes. Joe Hurchin?
Yes.
Bill Peavy?
Yes.
Gerald Peterson?
Yes.
Charlie Grant?
Yes.
Greg Telejohn?
Yes.
Roger Larson?
Yes.
Richard King?
Yes.
Frederick Horn?
Yes.
John Mortensen?
Yes.
Esther Wentz?
Yes.
Gene Ritz?
Yes.
David Peterson?
Yes.
David Osnes?
Yes.
Lauren Sather?
Yes.
Richard Marzoff?
Yes.
Sharon Norton Bauman?
Yes.
Roger Rebholz?
Yes.
Bill Cranmer?
Yes.
Daryl Standifer?
Yes.
John Borup?
Yes.
Clarence Malick? Steve Hermson?
Yes.
Kenneth Colby?
Yes.
Cindy Leonard?
Yes.
Unanimous.
going to vote for the amendment the amendment to change the wording to add the word partially. And that's also a roll call vote, is that what you said? That'll be my roll call vote also. A yes vote will mean it goes in, a no vote means it doesn't.
Shane Demling? Laura Tomerdahl? Dan Rabel?
Yes.
Alfred Trank?
Yes.
Julie Spear? Joe Hurchin?
Yes.
Bill Peavy?
No.
Gerald Peterson?
No.
Charlie Grant?
No.
Greg Telejohn?
No.
Roger Larson?
No.
Richard King?
No.
Frederick Horn?
Yes.
John Mortensen?
Yes.
Esther Wentz?
Yes.
Jean Ritz?
Yes.
David Peterson?
Yes.
David Osnes?
No.
Lauren Sather?
No.
Richard Marzoff?
Yes.
Sharon Norton Bauman?
No.
Roger Rebholz?
No.
Bill Cranmer?
No.
Daryl Standifer?
No.
John Borup?
No.
Clarence Malick? Steve Hermson?
No.
Kenneth Colby?
Yes.
Cindy Leonard?
No.
Linda Lucky?
No.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 no?
12 no's, 15, 20 yes. Oh, no.
18. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18.
No's and 12 yes.
Yeah, should be 18.
The vote is 18 no's and 12 yes. So the changing of the wording does not carry. Okay, now, yes, Mr. Cranmer. Now we will vote on the original resolution put to you earlier today. Mr. Cranmer.
I have an amendment to the motion, or no, I guess it's not an amendment. I have a move to refer this back to the committee, and I would like to state why, if we can, during a period of discussion. If I can get a second for that.
What's your motion again?
To move to refer this question back to the committee. Okay. Okay.
Okay, I'm going to ask an opinion from Corp Counsel because I have a motion to make. Being that we didn't get a second to his motion, Corp Counsel, I'm in a position to make a motion, is that correct?
If there's been a request for a second and there wasn't one, then yes, you can make another motion.
You can make one if you want.
Ask for a second, Roger. Ask for a second.
Okay, Supervisor Cranmer referred it back to committee. He moved that. Is there a second to that? Hearing none, it fails.
Mr. Chairman, I move to accept the recommendation from the ad hoc committee on what the language of the resolution on a nursing home should read.
Who made the second?
Well, that's already on the floor.
Yeah, that's a motion.
That's the main motion right now.
That's the main motion. It's a motion to adopt the resolution.
Mr. Chairman, I call for the question.
Is that a motion to end debate?
That is.
That requires a second and two-thirds vote. Second. And then chairman is probably about to call for a vote anyway.
We want to get it done.
Yeah, pull your motion.
Okay, so I gotta do it.
Don't make that.
Okay. Dan?
Mr. Chairman, I'll withdraw that. I'll withdraw my second.
Will you turn off that mic back there? Okay. Okay, we're going to go to the main reason we're here on this particular moment, and that is to adopt the resolution. And that motion has been made by Peterson, seconded by... No. No, it's a... Now, so now we're going to go to the main motion, approving the resolution the way it was presented. And there's a roll call vote on that. Yes, with the explanation. I'm going to ask Cindy to read it back so we know where we're at.
That's on about page 4 of, I've defined it. Still looking for my motion, I'm sorry. There was a motion by, it was a motion by Supervisor Borup and second by Supervisor Spear to approve. It's at the very top.
Just to clarify, just to bring it back into perspective, I've been kind of doing some mouth language across the thing here, but I think what it is, the motion on the floor, it came through the resolution from the ad hoc committee. But it was, am I not mistaken that it's amended by county council to add his wording into it? Or are we actually approving the short version that was approved, brought forth by the committee?
No, the Corporation Council did not change the wording in the referendum words. He only added an explanation. And we're voting for his explanation and the referendum vote.
Okay. Laura Tomerdahl. Yes. Dan Rabel.
No.
Alfred Schrank.
No.
Julie Spear.
Yes.
Joe Hurchin.
Yes.
Bill Peavy.
Yes.
Gerald Peterson.
Yes.
Charlie Grant.
Yes.
Greg Telejohn.
Yes.
Roger Larson.
Yes.
Richard King.
Yes.
Frederick Horn.
Yes.
John Mortensen.
Yes.
Esther Wentz.
Yes.
Jean Ritz.
Yes.
David Peterson.
Yes.
David Osnes.
Yes.
Lauren Sather.
Yes.
Richard Marzoff.
No.
Sharon Norton Bauman.
Yes.
Roger Rebholz.
Yes.
Bill Cranmer.
No.
Daryl Standifer.
Yes.
John Borup.
Yes.
Clarence Malick. Steve Hermson.
Yes.
Kenneth Colby.
No.
Cindy Leonard.
Yes.
Linda Lucky.
Yes.
Shane Demling.
Yes.
25 for and 5 against. The vote is 25 for and 5 against, so the motion carries. The last thing I'd like to have today is the report from the county clerk and rezoning requests. Well, while Cindy is getting organized, I just want to remind everybody that within the next couple of weeks, I don't have to remind you, all of us are going to be busy presenting budgets to the Finance Committee. It'll be a long week for them. It'll be a long week for everyone else. Let's all work together on it the best we can.
Okay, I have a couple announcements, and I'll read the rezoning hearings scheduled for Planning and Zoning Committee. Charles and Barbara Wire to rezone approximately 43 acres from Ag to Ag 2 in the town of Rush River. John Bettendorf to rezone approximately 4.82 acres from Ag Res to commercial in the town of Kinnickinnick. Donald Ziegler to rezone approximately 2.35 acres from Ag to Ag residential in the town of Stanton. Jeremy Ostrom to rezone approximately 1.06 acres from Ag Res to Ag in the town of Pleasant Valley. And Sharon Ostrom to rezone approximately 1.06 acres from Ag to Ag residential in the town of Pleasant Valley. I have no correspondence, just a couple things. Of course, the WCA, I keep reminding you of that. Early registration needs to be done before the next county board meeting, so if you plan to attend, please let me know as soon as possible. I need to register, I will register before September 12th. And that again is October 12th through the 14th in the Wisconsin Dells at the Kalahari Resort. A couple things I had sent out. One thing on your desk is just for your information. With regard to any referendum, I had contacted the Government Accountability Board Elections Division regarding campaign funding requirements for individuals or groups promoting passage or defeat of referendum, and I gave you that explanation on there. And state statutes 11.23 require any individual or group that raises or spends over $25 to promote the passage or defeat of a referendum are required to register, and that registration would be with me, and that's campaign finance. Reports would be filed with me on that.
I didn't receive one of those at the desk. Did you say you were in and out? I didn't get one. You might want to put them in our box.
We all got one in the mail. I did.
Okay, I will put it in your mailboxes. I thought they were placed on the desk this morning. Sorry about that. I think that's all I have. Oh, I do have, before you leave, please, I need the Finance Committee and the Administration Committee members, which includes the Ad Hoc Nursing Home Committee, to sign some resolutions. Please don't leave until you sign these. Thank you.
And also remind Transportation Committee we'll meet over in the boardroom office right after for our short meeting. We are adjourned.